aspects of transdisciplinary research proposal, as you go into the final leg of this marathon. There's always a need to to prepare oneself for that. So I'm not sure if everyone can hear me. If not, just let me know. What we're going to do here is to first refresh our minds on some of the key aspects of research proposal, but with some critical thinking about research proposals for this group. And then we will have a short break, comfort break. And unfortunately, tea and biscuits won't be served. We haven't learned how to do this online. Okay. And so there will also be a short exercise that will be done by you individually, and we will manage that. A short exercise just to allow you the space to think through results. And what I'm going to do throughout the presentation is to
and highlight any factual errors that you have seen in the.
Could you please mute ourselves and just allow Prof. Maano to unmute and give the training? Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's always a challenge when people are in different places. Can somebody monitor just the screen for me to mute people? Level, could you just help with muting people? Because sometimes they join and they forget that they.
Sorry. Yes, no. I'll just quickly mute everyone else.
Okay.
Thank you, Prof.
All right. I still here.
I've muted everyone.
Okay, I've unmuted myself, so okay. Thanks, Level, for doing that. Colleagues, just to emphasize that, please keep yourself muted. We will give you the opportunity to unmute when we do engage. All right, so I was just explaining, the procedures, and in terms of the presentation that I'm going to share with you shortly, what we hope to do is to, not for you just to listen to me as I go through everything, but to engage, which will require that, now and then I will pause and we do engage. And please feel free to, to air your views, to ask questions when we engage. There might not be an opportunity to do so, after this lecture with me, because of other engagement. So you have been given this enough time so we can use it productively. All right. With that in mind, let me find my presentation and share. Where is it now? Pattern don't think I have got the options to share on my side.
Yalebo, please allow Prof to have the host or the co-host right.
Let me quickly just do the settings.
Okay.
Please just check now.
Okay. Well. Okay. Sorry about it. I don't seem to have it on my side. Never, do you mind just to share? There aren't many slides. I'll tell you, to sort of move on and so forth, so we don't waste time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can just share from your side. Sorry, Calix, I just don't see the. Okay, that's great. Could you put it on the okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to focus on proposal writing skills, research design and methodology. And you will be able to follow the discussions. I hope so. And Debbie, if you go to the next slide. Okay, so these are the three things we're going to do. And we're going to I just thought we will need to have a sense of what's going on in the mind of somebody writing a proposal. We don't always talk about these sort of things, but they do matter, and I want you to have a sense of that. And then we will have the skill set, some discussions on the skill set, just to have a sense of the skill sets. You already have the skill sets. You have applied already, but we will then look at some of these skills from different angles. And I will talk a bit about how to maximize the skills. And that's on the proposal writing side. Okay. So yeah, just to, I want to pause here and just allow us to think about what's in the proposal writing as the critical part of proposal writing is actually not to start typing, but it is in the mind. Proposal writing is like any other thing that we might want to make a proposal for. We've got to apply some thought to it, and so there are some pictures that you see here, 4 pictures in competitive games, and I just took these pictures randomly. So if they are not part of the things you like, don't worry. We just need to have a sense of what is going on in these people's minds. The athletes. I always watch the athletes as they run. Whenever I have the moment to do so, I don't always have the luxury of watching the athletics. But especially on the Olympics, now and then we do see, how people compete. So I looked, if I look at these athletes, or sports men and women, there's always something that comes out of them as they compete. Is there, do you think there's something common in this? Okay. Sorry, the people talking in the background again. Can you
Sorry, Prof. Let me
can
quickly just mute. Let me mute them.
Okay. I was just saying there's something that one observes when they are athletes, whenever there's competition. And I wondered, what do you think is the common denominator here? What is common among the four pictures that you have? Anybody who could share with us the thoughts there? What is common here? We have got different kinds of sports, people who are competing for something. I just want to get from your view of these pictures. By the way, I'm not using these pictures to test whether you're a robot or not. You know, we always have these kind of pictures whenever we log into some websites to say, are you a robot or not? You know, how many pictures do you see with this? This is not it. I just want to give you a sense of, what we might think was going on in the minds of these competitors. Any thought? What do you think is common among them?
Can I speak?
They are
Yes,
focused
yes,
on the
Ngozi.
goal.
Yes,
Each one
Ngozi.
of them, each one of them is in the competition with the hope of winning the prize.
Okay, thanks. Everyone is hoping to win the prize. Thanks very much for that, Ngozi. Any other thoughts? What is common among them?
They are focused on their goal.
They're focused on the goal. Okay. A very good observation. If you look at the athletes, they don't even check who is next to them. Everybody is just running. And yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts? What is common among them?
They seem to be involved in competition. They're competing.
Okay, they're competing. And what do you think is in their mind? What do you think is in their mind? What will be common? If we were to open their minds, whether they are in the motorbikes, the tennis court, they were playing tennis, or doing high jumping or athletics, what do you think is common in their mind?
The fear of losing.
The fear of losing. The fear of losing. Thanks, Kalabia. And the fear of losing can also be a motivation. I don't want to be the loser, for example. So all the answers that the suggestions that you made are really very helpful. And there is no right or wrong answers to this. But I wanted to begin to think about writing as something that requires focus. The same focus that the athletes want or are trying to push for. The same fear of not making it that is there. And that's why, now and then you see people crying when they've lost because they feel deflated. So this is something we don't think about when we are applying for grants. Sometimes it's just a question of, let me throw my dice. I might win, I might not win, but I would have played. But if one takes that approach to say, let me just throw my dice, then that focus is not going to be strong. There won't be that element of fear that becomes quite critical in motivating someone not to lose. Once someone says, whether I get this grant or not, it doesn't matter. The approach is going to be weak, simply because there is no element of saying, I've got to get this. And I'm not saying that competition is always a good thing, because people could do the worst thing to win. I mean, we've seen this in games at times. but the focus is quite important. And so when you're writing the proposal, you have to keep the focus. But keeping the focus is not the easiest of things to do in a life where there are too many busy things. You go to work, and the first thing you have is something that discomforts you, and you lose the focus of what you want to do in that day. Maybe you were hoping that I'm going to write the proposal at work before I go to do this other task, and before you approach that task, there are already distractions along the way. Detractions rather. There are many other things that could here with the way you have planned for your day. It could be at home, you're in your study area, in study room, or you're in the library at the university, and all of a sudden, something happens. So, you open an email box, it says something that is either exciting or deflating. Sometimes when things are too good as well, we lose the focus and get too excited. And just wonder, why did we open the email so early in the morning? So keeping focus would require managing. And why am I saying all these things? It's because everybody wants to write a good proposal, but there are always intervening circumstances that we don't always have control over. And they do stir emotions in people's lives that then affect the way they think. So the point I want to make by all these examples is to say that as one writes a proposal, one needs a quiet space of the mind so that you can be focused, and one needs to create that space in a very noisy world or noisy society where there are things coming on the WhatsApps and all these other gadgets that we carry every day. And I'm not saying that one should switch off all these things, but the point I'm making is that one should decide that I'm writing a very important assignment now, a very important task. And what I'm going to do is to keep my focus on that task and manage it accordingly. The next slide. And that's, thanks. And that's also part of, sorry, could we just ask that you mute yourself? Okay. The other important part that one is to engage with as part of the skills of writing is always to think about writing as thinking. So when you're writing the proposal, you're involved in very deep thinking. Writers are deep thinkers, and so as one conceptualizes the research project, it becomes very important that one is engaged in thinking, because that is an important skill set to conceptualize the project. What makes people to find it difficult to write is that to write a good proposal is that they haven't conceptualized it properly. And conceptualization can only come about when one is engaged in deep thinking. Thinking about oneself. I just said to you, sort of writing yourself, right? And that might imply writing yourself into the world. You're trying to think about, where do I want this project to go? What does this project say to me? Because that's quite important. And I've just given you a few examples of some thoughtful writings that have come about on things related to Africa. Most of you would know the authors that I've referred to. And the point of referring to this, that I keep hearing voices at the back. Let me see if I can. Yeah. The common thing about these writings, I mean, the authors that I have just highlighted on the screen, is that they had to think about issues, perhaps in ways that have had influence long after they were no more, you know. And one thinks about the way they conceptualize the world around them, the way they ask questions about the world around them, and how they thought they need to then start. And conceptualizing the research project perhaps is the harder part, because it involves deciding on what kinds of questions one is going to ask. Can I just check in the audience if any of you might have read any of the books that I've highlighted on the screen? Anybody who has read any of these books?
Yes, I've read Things Fall Apart.
Okay. Do you want to share with us what you thought about that?
For me, I think when Achebe wrote Things Fall Apart, he was trying to, if I would use your words, right back to the white man and say the Africans have their own culture and their own way of settling disputes and punishment and education. Just in a summary.
Okay, thank you very much. Is that Colombo who just said? Okay.
Yes, that's Colomba.
Colomba, thank you very much, Colomba. Any other person who might have read about one of the sources here? Just on the chart.
We
I
have a
see
hand from
Ifenywa. Yes, there's a hand from
Rachel.
Rachel. Yes, Rachel.
No, it's a legendary one. I wanted to respond on what we were seeing on the athletics slide. Sorry.
Oh, okay. It's a legacy hand, but I see that if Yinua has read about Chinua Achebe, could you share with us some of the thoughts from Chinua Achebe as well?
Yeah, I think Chinua Achebe was quite a creative writer who he does a lot of setting in the writing. So he makes you feel like you were there, and you can feel what is happening. He creates that sense of the scenery, the environment, what is going on, what is happening, and then how it is happening. So you see a lot, and also some of the use of the words, the local word comes into the discussion
All right.
in the writing. So he's someone that's very good at.
Okay.
So that's very important. Thank you.
All right. No, thanks very much. And Nancy, you read Unbowed. Could you share with us your thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure, thanks. This is a very interesting book that really highlights the story of Wangari Maathai, what she was doing since childhood up to where she was in terms of development and making her also win the Nobel Peace Prize. What I took away from this book is more of the matters of resilience and being determined on what you would like to do and have courage in the advocacy activities that you do without not forgetting environmental conservation and management activities. Plus, what does it mean by empowerment and taking the lead? And also personal reflection as a key way of succeeding in your different activities.
Okay, thank you very much, Nancy. I like the point on reflection, which the previous two speakers have also. Let me take the last comment on this one, Dr. Namu.
Thank you.
Dr. Namu.
Yes, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Yes, I have read the book by Wangari Maathai and Bowed. And what I took from that book is Wangari Maathai is or was a village girl who was able to overcome all the challenges, being a village girl, being a woman, but she focused in environmental conservation, protecting our environment. She was able to lead women groups in Kenya up to where she won the Nobel Prize. So she was focused despite the challenges. She was not broken, and eventually she won. Thank you.
All right. Okay. No, thank you very much. I want to thank everyone for sharing your thoughts about this books. So my choice was spot on because people have read the book. I was afraid that maybe I'll put on the books that I need to explain what is in them. And of course, things fall apart with the prescribed book for many places, in many places, and it's really one of those classics. So if one looks at all these books, there's deep thinking, and deep thinking is required for anybody who wants to write a proposal. A proposal that will have impact starts from a very strong conceptualization. And by conceptualization here, we're referring to a combination of things. The ability to ask deep questions about the world, the ability to ask uncomfortable questions, the ability to move beyond one's own disciplines in understanding what is going on in the world. And that's why transdisciplinary is becoming important, because it challenges us to move beyond just the background of the discipline, so we can understand other challenging dimensions of life. And all these books and many others that I could put on the screen, we can discuss these books throughout this session. But what I wanted to emphasize here, which has come out very clearly through your responses, is that we need to think of writing skills not as simply working on the document and producing it and submitting it, but thinking deeply about the issues that we want to address, thinking deeply about the questions that we want to ask, thinking deeply about what others have thought about the issues as well. And that's why there's always this encouragement for anybody writing the proposal to find out what others have written about in the area that you want to work on. So that's quite important when it comes to writing. I see now I can share my screen. Lebo, do you want to unshare so I can share my screen? Or you can? Okay. Okay, let me first find out where my. Okay. Sorry, I'm looking for. Can I just check? Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we do, Prof.
I see it is still not on the presentation mode.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right. Okay, let me go down. Okay, I was here. Right, thanks. Florence, I see you have got a hand up.
Oh no, I was going to talk about the book. It's okay, since we are done with that.
Okay, no. If you know, we don't want to lose the insight you have, Florence. Before we're just about to go to the next slide. So
Well,
yes.
I think everybody has said it. On Chinua Achebe, I thought he was very thoughtful, very reflective, and uses concepts that actually stay on your mind. For example, when he's describing how among the Igbo, they had to throw away twins. It was an abomination to have babies that are twins. That description with the drum that follows, you know, is still in my mind. I read it when I was in high school, a long time ago.
Okay, thanks. I like that, Florence. And that's impact. Okay. So deep thinking, a very profound conceptualization is required for that impact, you know, so that whatever the research that you have done will have, you know, people will know about that research for a long time. You know, very often when we think about the impact, it's more about whether people are better off, which is fine, but this is the practical level. But there's also a sense of impact which comes with people knowing what you have thought about for a very, very long time. And so this is some of the classics. Steve Biko's book, I Write What I Like, has to be republished actually for the next generation of scholars to read about Black consciousness, which is quite critical. It was very instrumental in the Fees Must Fall movement, in the curriculum reforms, restructuring, decolonization, and so forth. These are still the ideas that have got long impact, and people can think about them without necessarily rereading the book. But so if we go now to what then makes the proposal to be of quality. There are different ideas about what will make the proposal more important. I'd like to get maybe, you know, 4 views from you about what you think will make the research proposal of the highest quality. Any thoughts? Dr. Nam, is this a legacy hand that is still up?
Sorry, maybe
Sorry.
I left my hand up, but I could try to answer.
Okay. Yes.
So
you don't have to. I just thought maybe your hand is up, but feel free.
Okay, thank you. For me, when I think of quality of research, I'm looking at what is the challenge, the problem that will be addressed? What is the issue that we are trying to address, which will inform me what questions do I ask so that I get the information required or the solutions required to address the challenge which the community or the issue at hand. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Now, thank you very much, Dr. Namu, for that thought. Looking at the issues and then beginning to think of the questions that one would ask. Any other thought? What makes the proposal to be of good quality? Yes, please go on.
Okay. I'm going to use the skills that Chinua Achebe showed in his writing of Things Fall Apart. When I read the Things Fall Apart, I could, imagine. I mean, he was able to take me through. I could. It was like I was even there, so it felt very real to me. And so if one is able to use this kind of writing skills, ability to come out clearly what challenges you're addressing and what solution you are preferring in such a way that the reader, the assessors, are able to feel it realistically. For me, it makes for a good quality proposal. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for
I want
that
to say
thought.
something.
Yes.
It's not Mbeko
Yes.
here. My hand, I can't raise it.
No,
I'm
that's fine.
thinking,
That's fine.
okay, I'm thinking of the issue of the methods that needs to be matched with the questions, the issue of selecting the relevant participants or respondents and the measures that will be used for the outcomes. That's what I'm just thinking that should be quality of the research. Thank you.
Okay. No, thank you very much for sharing that. So it's when we look at the research, it's how this is going to be done and how we're going to measure the outcomes. Okay. Karani, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yes, my name is Warani. Thank you.
Warani, yes.
Yeah. So in my perspective, like good proposal, it's a proposal that describe the context in a very concise and very good way, and it's posed the scientific question also in an accurate way. Also, it describes the methodology and also what methods will be used and the innovation in the methods, and also if the proposal is realistic, depending on the amount of funding and the proposed objectives of the project, if it fits the funding, and also if it's realistic in terms of the timeline, and also the budget that as it's offered. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks. So it's taking the whole proposal, through to the budget process, which is what the training in the last run in October was meant to help us do. I see a couple of hands. Professor Boama.
Hello. Yes. With respect to the quality of the research or the quality of the proposal, we are looking at resolving a particular challenge, providing knowledge, contributing to knowledge that will help address a particular challenge or a societal problem. So if it's a quality proposal, it must be able to produce outcomes or outputs that will address that particular societal problem. It should come out with an innovation that will be impactful, so that as we or whatever societal problem that is at stake, we will be able to carry the masses to be able to have a real solution, a realistic functional solution to whatever challenge that is was. I think then that proposal will be achieving what was said to achieve.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll take 3 more hands and then we wrap up. So I have, sorry, the names are, is it Said? You're muted. Said, you're muted. Okay, I can't hear Said. Could we move to Said? You could be checking your mic there. You were muted. Dorothy.
Thank you very much. A good proposal
You
would
can
be
hear me
clear,
now.
concise, and well organized, and also complies to the needs of the funder or the donor. Also strategic to ensure that it addresses a challenge, and then the context, and also what impact it will have on the society. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Said, are you able to come on now?
Yes, Said.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, well, I would just make it in a summary form, and I would say dealing with real issues and not imaginary things. That's what I'd like to say.
Okay, thank you very much for that so short and sweet answer. Flo?
Good afternoon. Thanks for this important presentation on the transdisciplinarity. I think it's well perceived that not only the research community is involved in the research, but also practitioners, knowledge partners, NGOs, civil society organizations. And very often, of course, we focus on those who are the beneficiaries of the research, like, for example, policy, who need to prepare for decision-making tomorrow. But I think it's also important to think through those who are impacted most about the research. And then on top of it, I think it is important to try to make explicit how the partners impact the results. So the transdisciplinarity of the research also has impact on the result. And that, I think, needs to thought through properly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. And I want to thank everyone for sharing these ideas. So it's you're looking at the quality of the research from different angles. If you were to tell somebody in one word that if you want quality research, you must do this one thing, what will that be? Just one thing. Yes?
Clarity.
Clarity. Okay. Any other word? One word, please. No sentence this time.
Concise.
Concise. Okay.
Strategic.
Strategic.
You must follow the funders' requirements.
Could you summarize that in one word, Veronica?
Relevance.
Relevance.
Yeah, relevance.
Okay, relevance. Okay. All right. Thanks very much. I would say that what you have said in terms of the quality of the research, it's important, and we can differentiate research quality using quite a number of matrices. But if you think of where to start with the research, it has to start with a question. And I always say to my graduate students, if you want to have quality findings, you should have a quality question to ask. In other words, you could differentiate your research by asking quite a different question altogether. And if one looks at the histories of theories of knowledge, theories and in different knowledge domains, one gets an impression that the writers who have had profound impact in society were also asking deep questions, perhaps questions that were never thought about. And it may be that the question itself, going to transdisciplinary, requires researcher to look beyond their own disciplines, to also devise methodological instruments that will mean they should be using quite a number of to be able to answer that question. But it is also important to have a sense of, why is the research needed? In other words, justifying the research, and this is always important for funding. It's also important for the production of knowledge that has got impact, is to think of, why is this research needed? Is it because the society has profound problems or challenges that cannot be addressed without this kind of research? As an example, could it be that you're doing this research because somebody needs it, and the funders sometimes can influence the direction of the research by saying we want research to address this, and that's a very closed call. That you can't come and imagine your own research problems or research challenges. You have to try and answer what the funders want to be answered. If, for example, the funder wants to eliminate malaria, you cannot go and propose a good study on unemployment, for example, because that's not what the funder wants. And so that's why it's always important to have a sense of, why is the research needed, and also who needs this research. If we think of open-ended calls, they also do have some directions of the areas that they would fund. And that's important for the funders, because they've identified a need. They can justify spending resources in certain directions. But I think some of you did mention transdisciplinarity here, and I'd like us to sort of look more closely into it, and perhaps briefly answer the question, what makes your proposal transdisciplinary? But if we look at the proposal and we're saying this should be transdisciplinary, what is it that would make it stand out as a transdisciplinary research? Is it in the methodology? Is it in the thinking? Is it in the design? I'd like to hear your thoughts here about what you think will make your own research transdisciplinary. I think most of the funders are now looking for transdisciplinary projects. Any thoughts on this question? What will make the research transdisciplinary? Yes, Dorothy. Is that Dorothy's hand? I see the hand is up.
Yes, I'm already thinking about 3 areas in the design,
Yes.
in the team composition, and also in the approach and context. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Team design, approach, and content. Any other thoughts? What will make your research proposal
Context
transdisciplinary?
and team.
And the team, yes. Thanks. Yes, who's that, Ngozi?
Yes. For me, deep thinking also comes in. You have to think about the outcomes, what effects or who will be affected. Are you able to take care of every aspect of the inputs and the outputs and the outcomes, the processes? So when you think about this, there's always that need to get those who are more proficient in areas where you are not to be part of the team for the best outcomes. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So it goes back to the composition of the team as well. Okay, thanks, Kofi.
Yeah, thanks very much. For the transdisciplinarity, what I look out for is co-development. In terms of co-development, we're looking at those that will be impacted to get the ideas on important topical areas or issues that you need to consider. Then you also have your team to work with. But the most important one is I would say, coming up from the bottom-up approach, just bottom-up approach, getting the society that will be impacted. Then you can put your ideas together in order to come out with the various concepts from different disciplines that will address issues that they have brought out. Thank you.
Okay, now thank you very much for that. Prof. Buwama, sorry.
Yeah, I very much agree with the last speaker, but I just add in a little bit to that. So just as he said, all the stakeholders that will be directly, maybe direct beneficiaries of that particular proposal or that particular research that you are undertaking, and how at the end of the day, the outcomes and the outputs during the implementation, who are the people and what are the disciplines that you may need in order to be able to implement whatever outcomes that you have been able to devise. And also, if you look at the context, what context? And you realize that looking at the context, that will bring on board various expertise and various people. So they approach the context, the scope. And when you are implementing the stakeholders that will be involved, so all will gear towards the buildup of your team, and it will finally demand transdisciplinarity.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that contribution. Timothy?
Yes, thank you, and hello everyone. I also think that the scholarly basis, of the proposal, like the various sources of information, scholarly information that goes into the narrative, of the proposal, would indicate the disciplinarity or transdisciplinarity of the proposal, whether it's coming from, a combination of social sciences, various social science disciplines, or natural sciences, humanities, the various scholarly basis of the narrative. And of course, also the methods, will determine how transdisciplinary or not it is.
Okay, thank you very much for these ideas. Timothy, shall we go now to Florence?
Thank you very much. And I would say that in transdisciplinary, in this case, probably would look at the cross-cutting issues that the study or the research has to address. That would then mean the problem is cross-cutting. Only one approach may not be adequate enough to solve, because the issues require people coming, players or stakeholders coming together and looking at those issues from their perspectives where they clearly understand. So that is how I could say it. So the different players therefore would now look at the expertise in line with what they are tackling to bring the issues, to make it more clearer. I submit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Florence. That's very useful. So you completely right in thinking about transdisciplinarity and how how it improves the quality of the proposal, but it speaks back to the research questions. Increasingly, research researchers are being required to demonstrate societal impact. So the days of doing research for its own sake are getting numbered, if they have not been done so already. And I know if there are colleagues here who are in disciplines that are divided between applied and blue sky thinking, you would know that there are still disciplines that people think you need to be just applying your mind, and whoever wants to use them, they can do so. I can think of mathematics, for example. You now and then have a division among mathematicians, pure mathematics and applied mathematics, for example. You also have in philosophy people who are just thinking about the world. Of course, their thinking could help change the world, but some of them don't see themselves as responsible for changing the world, but they put ideas about the world that others could use to change the world. But philosophers, whether it's in education or other fields, have had tremendous impact into how we do things. And I know philosophers of education in the past, for example, were always interested in people learning from other regions, and that's why travel in the past, in the early days of education, was an important subject in the curriculum, because you have to travel and see other parts of the world, so that the world is not limited to your city, your town, or village. You begin to see things that you would not have thought about as part of the reality of life. So societal impact is becoming an important aspect of the research. And we always have different ideas, and we should, about societal impact. What is the impact to society? In higher education, is becoming very important in assessing people for promotion in different institutions. I understand, to look at, of course, the research, its impact, its quality as measured by different things, but also the impact of the research on society. Whether the research is able to do something in society. I also want to pause here and say, why is societal impact so important for researchers? Why do we have to demonstrate societal impact? It sounds a mundane question, but I want us to go a bit deeper into it as we engage with this idea of societal impact. It's something that's coming more strongly now. It wasn't always there. University rankings are also taking the question of impact, especially on the Sustainable Development Goals. Could I just pause and say, why is it important to have research making societal impact? Any thoughts?
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Okay, for me, given the problem of climate change that we have now at hand, it's very important that societal impact of any research should come out very clearly. Before now, the production was, development of the economy was uppermost in the minds of researchers and entrepreneurs. Yeah, they just went on to increase production, but the long-term impact of the methods of production and the side effects of production processes wasn't something that was particularly taken into consideration. And here we are now having the kind of problems, climate-related problems. So what I'm saying is it's important to look out for the impacts on the society, on environment, everywhere, everything that has to do, everything that is related to that research, so that we will be able to take mitigative measures during the research process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ngozi. Any thoughts? Why does research have to have societal impact? I see the hand, is it Heka? You're muted, Heka.
Thank you. I think the importance of having the societal impact is that one, you don't carry out a research in a vacuum. You identified a problem that was affecting the society, and therefore we need to solve that. So the impact is one, we need to know, has this problem been solved? Number two, sometimes you might be solving a problem, and in the process, another problem is created. Therefore, you need to check the impact of this research that I've done or the recommendations that have come out of it. If they're implemented, are they likely to have a trickle-down effect on the society, and whether in the positive or in the negative, and how can that be prevented so that we only have the positive outcomes for the society? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Rispa?
My thought is on using a just lens when talk about societal impact. How justice your research would it inform a kind of will it have an impact to the society that an injustice will be done through the research that you have conducted, the output of your research? So societal impact for my case, I think we look into this research on a just angle, that justice may be served to the community, what you are implementing, and if it is to have a policy impact, then it will have a just impact to the community, the marginalized or those that are not considered.
Mm-hmm. Yes, no, that's important. So it's also whether the research itself, not the finding, but the way the research is done it's promoting social justice or environmental justice of one in one form or another. So that's important. Thanks, Prof. Bawama.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity once again. I want to add that with societal impact, we are looking at what will actually drive change for us to derive optimal benefits. So in couching our proposal or the research approach, the intention is to actually look at how we can facilitate a holistic approach in tackling a problem, so that at the end of the day, we can maximize all the expertise and skills to be able to drive the change we want. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. It would appear from what all of you have just said now that one way of looking at the quality of the proposal is looking at its impact. What is going to be the impact of this research? And now that funders are looking for impact, we have to demonstrate all the time what is the impact of the research that we're doing. But there's also a moral obligation that is becoming more pronounced in a society that is funding the research. In most cases, we're using public money. Those of us who work at universities are public institutions. Of course, there are private universities. And even those private universities do pay tax. I hope they do all the time. And then that becomes public that is being used. So the public has the right to have access to that. The open access perhaps is a very good example of that push. But also in addressing societal problems. Society is investing public funds in research. The research should feed back to society in one way or the other. So that's why it's becoming more important. It's a moral obligation of the researchers to really plow back into society. But of course, disciplines do not always have the same always dealing with societal problems, the diseases and how to try and keep a healthy nation, a healthy society. So in some ways, the discipline is in terms of impact. But for many other questions or disciplines, we have to think about what kind of impact we want to make. It's not pre-given that you need to solve a problem you want to solve. The research that we undertake, but also to begin to think of the impact that if it is successfully conducted, it would have on society. So so again, when quality proposal, it's the impact on society. But there's also a broader contribution to sustainability, sort of going beyond just people, looking at sustainability. If we say that we need to have societal impact because we have identified problems in society that we need to thing that we need to contribute to all the time when we do the research. One could answer this question by yes or no, but perhaps if you just share with me your thoughts. Sustainability. Does research have to be to contribute to sustainability? Any thought? Yes, Emmanuel? Emmanuel, you're muted.
Okay, hello everyone. It's important to think of sustainability, and it's because we need that solution. We are talking of societal impact. We want it to remain there after the life after the life of the project. So if it's not there after the life of the project, it's like it were an experiment and then the experiment failed, so it would be useless. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. So we have to sustain the impact on society, as that's one way of looking at it. There's a hand up here. Is it John? Yes, John.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Wonderful, Maano. My view on this is, I think contributions to sustainability is very important. You know, it's fine helping the community with your research and having an impact there. But I think if one can use that research as a model, which you can then take to elsewhere in the world, whether it be to Africa or elsewhere, then I think that is a major contribution to sustainability of the idea and the impact that was made. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Something that can be replicated so that it doesn't end at the site where the research was done. Okay, thanks. There's a hand up there. I can only see the number, so I can't see your name.
It's not Tembek. I'm from the University of Pretoria again, Prof.
Okay.
When we talk about sustainability, what comes to my mind is the issue of aligning the research with the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. In whatever that we do, we need just to have that focus. That's what I'm thinking, Prof. Thank you so much.
Okay, all right, thanks. Sustainability in terms of the SDGs. Okay, thanks. I think the SDGs are trying to, they were trying to simplify, how we should measure the impact of research in the broad range of other areas. Dr. Namo?
Thank you. Yes, I think research should contribute to sustainability. And how I look at it is like if I'm looking at a community that I'm working with or wherever I am, and I'm looking at this current generation, we who are here now, and I'm thinking of what about our children, their children? Is this research helping? If it's environment, are we protecting it so that even their children, great-grandchildren, will also be able to enjoy what we are enjoying now? So yes, we should be able to look at the research you're doing and see if what you're enjoying now can be in such a way that we protect it, we use it in a way that even future generations will also benefit and enjoy like we are doing. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Intergenerational impact, where we have to look at what the next generation would benefit from what we're doing today. Okay, I see Dorothy, and then I'll go to Hellas.
Thank you very much. Actually, sustainability and societal impact are more related. Sustainability is to allow continuation of the project even upon expiry of the project period, and that will come in when there are benefits or there are impact that are associated with the society, whether they are economic, whether they are environmental, or there are benefits that are accrued from that, so that even upon that expiry, then the project is still able to continue and benefit the society.
Yes,
not only today, but also in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Dorothy, for that linkage between society and the environment. Hellas, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yeah, thank you so much. It is Gelas.
Gelas, okay.
Yes. I look at sustainability in terms of uptake. For example, after the project, then have we transferred some skills that the team remaining behind can take it up if there was technology transfer. Secondly, is it possible to use local materials to do the same so that we can continue with that? If it's an innovation, we can continue with it to solve the society problem. That's how I look at it also.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gallas. So we look at sustainability from different angles, and I think your points have been well made about, the long-term contribution to society, but also bringing in society and the environment together. Emmanuel, and then I'll go to Rachel.
I just wanted to, because I shared a point and then I heard others also share their points, but I got something that is more like a framework. So we are thinking of sustainability in terms of space, and in terms of time, and in terms of the research process, and in terms of the materials. This is according to the contributions. So in terms of space, as someone said, if we do research here, for example, in Africa, or it's done in Europe, then it has to be usable somewhere else. And I thought this is more of scalability. It's the sustainability aspect of scalability. Can it be taken to scale? Meaning it can be taken to somewhere else. And then with regards to time, I thought maybe it is a perpetuity. Is it continuously there after the research is done? And I noted that contributors have talked about time in terms of the current generation, the generation for which the research is relevant as it is, and the time in terms of the generation after or generations after. So that is what I wanted to contribute to this structure of putting the issues in a framework. But I think the other bigger framework has been that one which has been contributed by someone who mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals.
Okay.
That is the bigger framework that puts all of us within it if we want to think in terms of sustainability. Even though as we give these other points, we make it's like operationalizing the SDGs. Thanks.
Thank you, Emmanuel, for giving us those frameworks to think about the kinds of those frameworks. Rachel?
So a lot have been said on what sustainability looks like. I'll just add on to the fact that you're looking at continued benefits or continuity of the project beyond the project's duration, whereby you are aligning your project goals and the project objectives alongside national strategies and policies. You're also taking into account the use of locally available resources or structures for project execution by carefully leveraging on the existing, for example, government institutions at both local and national levels. You're also looking at building local capacity through capacity strengthening through knowledge dissemination or trainings. Also fostering a collaborative network that promote cross-sectoral synergy and holistic impact. So I'm looking at that as part and parcel of making sure that there is a sustainability even when the project phases out.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Thanks very much. So again, the time frame to say that when the project is done and dusted, it should continue to have the impact. So one has to make the strategic choice about sustainability. If we're thinking long term, is the project that we're proposing something that will have long-term impacts or long-term value, so to speak. So what is the shelf life, if I may use that description, for the project? Is it something that will disappear? And if you think of academic projects for master's degrees, for PhDs, I mean, the lifespan varies because of the kinds of issues that they're addressing. But there are those theses that will have long-term implications because they've been sustained. And that in this day and age, because during the PhD studies, the researcher doesn't have time to put together and publish it with the potential for impact, because they've got limited funding to complete this PhD or masters, and they've got to do so and get out of the system, and the system gets rewarded for being able to produce or graduate a student. But it is after the graduation that then that idea of a PhD is sustained. If we're thinking about it along those lines in terms of the time span, the temporalities of the project, is that one has also to sustain the ideas of the project or the methodologies of the project, depending on what contribution one wants to make in society and in the transdisciplinary space that one is involved with. I'm glad that in talking about sustainability, we have not been limited to thinking about environmental issues, because that's sometimes what's get more on the way of thinking about sustainability. It's how do we look after the planet? But we're looking at both the research itself and how it needs to be sustained. And very often funders wants to know what is going to happen once this research has been completed. How are you going to sustain it? Are you going to apply for more funding? Is the team that you've assembled strong enough to sustain the idea of the project in order for the impact to be realized later on? So these are important questions. Can I just pause here and see if anybody has a comment or question to ask? So I've been asking questions and you're responding, but perhaps now you want to ask some questions and I respond. Any question from the virtual class, virtual space? Any question or comment on the things we have discussed so far? No, Rachel, is your hand a legacy hand?
Can I make a brief comment?
Okay.
Yeah. I was also just thinking that when we are talking about sustainability and in our proposal writing, it's important to think about risk mitigation. And here, thinking about building a stakeholders' trust. Yeah, because it's important to demonstrate sustainability, to build trust among partners, funders, and the communities, as this will signal somewhat a commitment to responsible practices. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Veronica. That's an important point. That the funders also have to have that trust on the researchers or the research team, that if they make an investment, they won't be throwing away their resources. So that's important to develop that trust. And the point you have also emphasized is that trust is critical for sustaining the project itself. Because who knows, if you've done the project, you may want to go back to those funders and say, hey, this project that you funded is going very well. Is there a chance we can continue along this way, or even add some more other dimensions to it? Thanks very much, Veronica. Emmanuel, is this a new hand?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
You said we should ask you questions, and my question is
Yes,
when
yes, you can.
we are thinking of sustainability, then come in issues of fashion and things being obsolete. Yeah, so what are your thoughts on those sustainability versus obsolescence and fashion?
Yes, that's a tricky one. So there are also, I mean, there are different ways of thinking about sustainability, and there are also buzzwords in society that will make one think, oh, this is the research that's needed, for example. Even people who are not qualified to tackle some of the research are tempted to say we want to do research on this because that's something popular at the time. And that kind of approach could also be influenced by the need to be part of the research that is making the waves. And that's also important for people who want to generate citations. And I mean, there are many other things that influence people to go along those ways, those directions, is because when you have an idea that's it's moving very fast and it's gaining traction in society, we may tend to think this is the way we need to sustain the research, or even sustain the society. But one has to pause and also and weigh one's own strength in engaging with these issues of sustainability. We know that words like sustainable development have been around for some time. And that was in addition to the initial idea of development. So things have been changing along the ways. But it is important, I would say, for quality proposal to be more measured in how one thinks about sustainability, and to take on those kinds of questions that one is able to, irrespective of whether they are popular or not at the time. Who knows that maybe in the future they might be seen to have been very innovative, which is a mark of a quality of the proposal as well. And sometimes the fashion, of course, goes with funding. I understand this, sometime this month or later, we will all be thinking about a decade of the SDGs as part of the United Nations drive to try and ensure that the energy that is in the research space, in governments, in industry, is all pulled together towards realizing the SDGs in 2030, which we are far behind in terms of meeting those goals. So it's important also to have a sense of the direction that one wants to take, and be convinced that this is the right direction. It addresses the kinds of questions that are of interest to society. Some of the questions might not be of interest to the place where the researcher lives, but they are important for other global players or other global areas or areas of importance globally, so to speak, where ideas are being signed off. If we think of all the places where the big ideas are signed off by countries of the world, they may not necessarily resonate with the kind of problem that a particular village is facing or has faced over the past 50 years, and nobody has bothered to investigate what to do with the situation, or a city. Some of the places that might be deteriorating because of quite a number of reasons that have very little to do with where the fashion is going. So we have to make those decisions as researchers. hoping that at least there will be some funders who will go along with those ideas. That's in sort of in a broad sense, Emmanuel. That's what I could say. I hope you find it a bit helpful or something to think about as you reflect on this session. Okay, colleagues, I want to propose that we take a short break. I know in some places it's in the morning. In other places it's in the afternoon, and so maybe breakfast they need a bit of coffee, and those who are in the afternoons might need something different. So shall we break? How much time do we need?
We can have 10 to 15 minutes, Prof. Maano.
Okay, 15 minutes. Let's have 15 minutes. So we'll come back after 15 minutes, which will be what time, Faten?
Now it's 35, so then 50.
50, okay, all right.
50 Qatar.
10, okay, 10 to 5 in the afternoon. Okay, thank you very much. So we'll see you after 15 minutes. Just checking, is everybody back?
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Yes,
Hello.
you there? Hello.
Yes, no, we are
Hello, we
back.
are back.
We're
We
back.
are
Back.
back.
Okay, thank you,
We are
thank
back.
you. Okay, thanks.
Bye, everyone again.
Okay, I'm just getting my mic here to. Okay, after this short break, I want us to conclude on the on the skill set and just go to how we maximize our skills before we tackle the next theme. One of the challenges of writing, of course, is to make things readable. And readability is something that we take for granted, but it can be a very challenging thing to do. Now, if you think of a very complex project that you want to do, and you decide that this project would need to, sorry, going to something else. This project would need to, so is my camera on now?
Yes, Prof.
Okay, thanks. So if you decide that this project needs to be readable to an audience that has very little knowledge about your field, that becomes a challenge. And so the quality of the proposal, and this point was mentioned earlier on, has to do with making it more readable to people who are not experts in the area that you're working on. Very often we just think of mentioning the SDGs, for example, that everybody would know what it is. It is not. It is not the case that everybody knows what the SDGs are. We assume it could be. Everybody might have heard about climate change, but not everybody understand what they. For example, one is writing a proposal and says that I want to assess the impact of global warming in this place. That might be interpreted differently because we have different understandings of what global warming is. Even in scholarship, it may not be that easy. So readability, one is thinking about making the project readable to anybody who can read the language of the project. If the project is written in French, for example, everybody who reads French should be able to understand your project. If the project is written in English, everybody who can read in English should be able to understand what you're trying to do in the project. And so that's where the question of readability comes about. Why I say readability is not given is because when we try to communicate to a broader audience, we have to make use of words, phrases that everybody will be able to understand what we mean by certain phrases or words. And so the quality of the project in the view of those assessing it might be enhanced by making it clearly readable to them, that they can follow exactly what you want to say. This ties back to the to accessibility, making the project accessible in terms of the the framing of the questions, but also accessible to the people that you're going to engage with. Whether these are policymakers. You don't want to go to discussions with policymakers and they say, well, I don't know what you mean by this. And you spend time trying to explain what you mean, because you have used the words which are not always easy for people to follow or understand. So it's important to have accessibility as a skill in writing your proposal, and to maximize on that skill for your own benefit. If you think of some of the books that are well read, they are written in the language that is accessible to the wider readership and the public. And that makes the ideas of that author perhaps more accessible beyond the intended audience in the first instance. I would also think that a good proposal would have very strong propositions. What is it that you're trying to achieve? What is the main proposal? If somebody could be asked what is your project about in one word or in a sentence, and it becomes very difficult to do so, to explain the project in one sentence. then the proposition might not be clear. It might not be accessible, and it may not be readable. So if writing a proposal for, let's take for your master's or PhD, when people ask you about what is your PhD about? I mean, in the first year, I think many of you would agree with me. It's difficult to say exactly what the PhD is about. In many of the disciplines, it may also be easier if it's experimental. You want to find out how to improve soil quality. That can be quite easy to explain. But if it is something that has to do with society, it becomes complex. So one has to make the proposition, a bit clear about what the research is intended to do, so that it can be judged on that basis. Now, the challenge with projects that are not readable, that are not easily accessible, propositions are not very clear, is that you may be misjudged, not because your project is not good, but nobody can understand what you're trying to do. It's not, the proposition is not very clear. In some cases, one is to make an argument. Well, maybe I'll say in most cases, one is to make an argument why this project should be funded, why this project should be considered a key aspect of inquiry. And the way the argument is advanced can be an advantage or disadvantage, again, depending on whether it is accessible. Is the argument made in such a way that people looking or reading at your proposal will have a sense of what you're trying to do, what the argument is. They may like the argument because it's very clear to them, or they might like the argument because it has got value in what they're trying to do as a funding organization. Even institutions might support some of the ideas because you want to make a very strong argument, which has got some ethical foundations on it. Now, the reason I'm emphasizing the idea of argument here is because sometimes you could have an argument which is ethically problematic in making. And I wonder whether you might think of an example where an argument does not sound good from the ethical point of view. Any thoughts on an argument which might be viewed as problematic, and then you can't even convince people because they can't listen to the argument? Anybody with perhaps an example of how that argument could be? An example of an argument that might be problematic. I'm not sure what happened to the short break. Everybody was fine, but now we had break. I don't know what people ate during the break or drank. Because now it's a changed audience. I don't see the hands anymore. Hello? I'm just checking. Oh, there's Gallus. Thanks, Gallus.
Thank you. I don't know if this will make sense, but if you look at anaerobic digester, for example, for domestic waste, if you remove pathogens, the rest is nitrates and phosphates. So if you tell someone in the community that we can use it to, say, plant vegetables, you may argue that it's safe, but it may not ethically make sense to the community. Is that close to an argument that you're thinking of?
Yes, it is. It is. You could be proposing something that actually, when you look at it more closely, it is problematic. Yes. Thanks for that, Gelas. Dr. Namu?
Thank you. I just also want to try, and what I have at the back of my mind is where there's flooding and there are people settled along the rivers, and then we have an argument that the reason why there are so many people near rivers and people, their property is getting destroyed, or some people are getting injuries, or sometimes losing some people, is because the population is very high and we need to reduce your population, etc., etc. So first, from the perspective of the community, they may not like the idea of we are accusing them and telling them we need to reduce their population without any further explanation. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Yeah, that's a good example, sort of the old the old view of population is a problem. And so I think this is where, measures to control population growth have been promoted in many ways. Yes, so people might feel offended that, you're saying they shouldn't have, the kind of family sizes that they think of. Okay. Thank you very much. Flo?
Yeah, I find it difficult to speak about population and poverty and food availability, because that might easily lead to confusion. But on the argumentation, I think food is a topic that could easily enter into bad argumentation. For example, if you ignore opportunities to increase food production, to change food habits in parts of the world, and for example, if you come up to potential for increasing food production in a region, ignoring climate change when regions increase the risk of drought and, for example, the lack of available water. If you ignore those important resources, which is straightforward if you look into integrated solutions, then you easily might enter a trap with a wrong argument. Thank you. But it's very interesting
Thank
to
you.
look into this. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Deshiki?
Yes, hello everyone. I guess I could give you an example that happened during COVID. Initially, clinical trials could do placebo versus whatever treatment they had. But then once the first pharmaceutical company had a vaccine on, now that became standard of care. So all of those proposals that had placebo had now ethics issues because now you had standard of care. So then they had to go back and rewrite proposals with a standard of care versus their new treatment. Thank you.
Oh, that's thanks very much. That's an interesting example of how COVID, also made some of these research questions more problematic. Okay, thanks. Any other suggestion for an argument that might be difficult to advance? I think if we think of the the arguments that have got ethical questions, question marks, there could be hundreds of these kind of examples, and so one has to really think of what is the argument that I want to make. And not only look at the argument, but at how this argument might be received, how it might be perceived, how the argument could be misinterpreted. So in other words, one weighs the possibilities of a variety of views that this argument might generate. Whether it's population or, what are those bags that might be there because of this argument. Sometimes even when, there's been ethical clearance, and when you go out there to try and work with, also that make it, that makes it very difficult for you to conduct the research. Now, what I'm encouraging you to think about here is that I want to make this argument and provide the evidence and win the argument. But to place the argument within a broader context, societal context, economic context, and then see possibilities for this argument. Now, why is it important to do so? There are several reasons for that. One is that the funders themselves might have a view about the argument itself that you're making, that they don't think that an argument of this should be aligned with it's not aligned rather with their own value systems. It's not aligned with what they want to be associated with. And they might look at your proposal as something that's not very strong, not because it doesn't have proper questions, designs, and all those things that we talk about, but simply because the argument that you want to might actually not be a good thing. If for example, think of the environmental questions, which is important for our day, whether plastics, and you want to argue that factories that produce plastics have employed so many people, as an example. And if there's companies are forced to close down their doors, unemployment will skyrocket because X number of people will be without employment. I mean, that's an important aspect from the view of the employment. But when you look at the environmental side of it, it's an argument that those who are funding projects to try and keep the environment safe for everyone, to sustain life on Earth, they might think this might be a dangerous terrain to get into, and the advice that I'm trying to bring here is to invite you rather to think about your propositions, the argumentations that you want to advance, and place that in a broader context in order to avoid what might appear to be conflict of interest between the researcher and the. Having said that, I'm not suggesting that we should always be doing the project that everybody likes, because I don't think there will be many of that kind of projects that you can propose a project and everybody is happy with the direction that it's taking. It's very unlikely in a society which has got so many challenges, including inequalities of different kinds, that you will have everybody being behind you. Okay. So I want us to move to a small exercise, looking at the proposal, before we come to the research design. And I've asked the team to circulate to you some of the a small task that I would want you to do. Just checking with Faten. Are you able to? How do you want to circulate that? Or shall we say it on the screen? Any suggestion?
Yeah, Prof. I shared the link in the chat box, so
Okay.
everyone can access and can see, the exercise.
Okay. Okay, so let me just explain this exercise. It's a short exercise for us to look at the three proposals, very short. It's not a full detailed proposal, but just to give you an opportunity to the three proposals and decide which one perhaps is the best in your view. And we can have some discussions about what makes it the best proposal. It's very short. It is meant for you just to have a quick look at it. So it is not long because then we're going to spend so much time trying to look at the full proposal. But the proposal is more about the direction that it is taking, and yeah. So, but I'll be interested to sort of to hear your views on that proposal. So can I just, if anybody hasn't received it, can I just check? Sorry, can I just check so we don't any person because they don't have access to it. Can I just check, do we all have access to this small exercise? Or maybe I should just ask.
Prof. Maano, you're mute.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened here. Can I just check? We circulated the it's a short exercise for everyone to do. Can I see if any of you does not have access to it? If you don't have access, could you just raise up your hand, and Faten and Liu Hang will be able to help. Shall we do? We all have access to it. Okay, there's Bosco.
No access. Also.
Sorry. Do you have access?
No, I don't have access.
Okay. It has been reposted again.
Yes, I just reposted on the chat box. Please have a look
Just
there
check
and
check the post. I see 3 hands of people without that. Okay, Bosco, it's okay now. Thank you, Bosco. Rosemary, have you got it now? Okay, please don't. Okay, we will talk about the proposal. So don't give the answer out yet. Don't give the answer out yet. I'll give you the opportunity to give the assessment. I'll give you the stage so you can give your views on that. Rosemary, have you got it now? Rosemary, you're muted. I'm not sure how to help Rosemary. Rosemary's muted, but I see the hand is up.
I'm posting for the first time on the chat box, so in case.
Okay. Okay.
But I see here more than 62 people are using the document online.
Oh, 62. Okay. Okay. So maybe this is, yeah. So if you don't have if you don't have access to the document, could you just
I will just
raise your
upload
hand?
that box, so then you can also download the document and you can use it.
Yeah, I think it's easier just to download it and have a look at it.
Yeah, I will upload it.
You want to upload it on the screen?
On the chat box.
Yeah, on the chat box, yeah. Okay, we're just going to give you maybe 5 more minutes. Guys, I see your hand is up.
Yes, Prof.
Have you got it? Have you got access to it?
Yeah, I have, and I wanted to ask if it's okay to start making contribution.
Okay, yes, you can start. Okay.
Okay, for me, I will say that proposal number 2 is better than the other 2 because I see that the research methods are suitable for the projects. It's going to apply both quantitative and qualitative methods to gather relevant data from the stakeholders. I think that's and moreover, it's going to do a baseline study. Given that this is more or less like I mean the proposal as I see it would need people's opinions about how they see things, the way they are thinking, what they are feeling. So I think for me that makes it I mean, it makes it useful to apply both qualitative and quantitative methods. On the other hand, proposal number 3 looks good, but it's going to use quantitative methods to gather data for a study that is going to ask people about what they feel, how they feel. I mean, the basic services. They are lacking in basic services. So I think because of that, I still think 2 is better. Then when we look at proposal number 1, it has to do with evaluating interrelationships. And here we're looking at using only qualitative data from the government, the private sector, and local communities. I really doubt that it will do justice to it because we also will need information on, I mean, quantitative information from government books, publications, like population size and GDP and the rest of them. So that's my thinking on this. That's what I think about the proposals. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ngozi. Any volunteer to evaluate, Emmanuel?
Hi, I also go for proposal number 2 I agree with Ngozi's comments, but I also add two more points that number two is better linked to the title of the project, which is the main aim of the project. Then number three has the objectives that are too scattered. They're not written in a compact way. And the link to the title and hence the main objective is not very, very clear. So it's about link to the title and compactness of our objectives. And the link to the title is shown by the keywords, the way the message is presented. For our project 2, that is better. And the compactness of the objectives, because you have several issues, but they are all mentioned within one objective. But for project 3, each of those several issues that are mentioned as one thing in project 2, each one gets its own objective. So it's a very scattered way of writing things.
Okay, thank you very much, Emmanuel. Any other assessment? Anybody else who could? You don't have to agree with the two speakers. Any other assessment?
Can I speak?
Yes, Veronica, yes.
Okay, so according to my assessment, I also think proposal number 2 should be ranked 1. And my reason being, if you look at proposal number 1, to me, it is so broad. It's talking about interrelationship between sustainable goals. And we know that we have quite a number of sustainable goals, 17 to be precise. So it is so broad. And proposal number 3, I would say that it's kind of like a blue sky kind of proposal, like it's talking about improving the quality of life. But improving of the quality of life is also entails so many things. So it's important that when you're writing your proposal, you be specific, choose on something, and then try and work towards it. It could be 1 or 2 things, but not too many things. So to me, proposal number 2 is the best because it's specifically talking about developing of indicators for sustainable development. So it's looking at an aspect of sustainable development and not sustainable development in its in the broad scale. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Veronica. Any other assessment?
I agree with Veronica. And number 2 is
Sorry, who's speaking?
clear.
Sorry, I can't see who's speaking.
Charles.
Okay, Charles. Okay, thanks.
Sorry. Yeah, number 2 is very specific and to the point. Right from the title itself, you can clearly see what they want to do in this particular project. And even if you look at the objectives, they're a bit close to being very smart, clearly indicating the intentions. But the number 1 and number 3 are a bit here and there, not very, very clear exactly how achievable that one is. So I agree with Veronica. Number 2 for me will carry the day.
Okay, thanks, Charles. Eka?
Thank you, Prof. I also agree with my colleagues. Proposal number 2 would carry the day for me. On top of what has been mentioned is that apart from the specificity, there's also a flow. You can clearly see what the researcher wants to do, how they intend to achieve it, such that if anyone else is given that proposal, they can actually implement without asking a lot of questions, what needs to be done, as opposed to the other two, which would leave someone with a lot of questions. How exactly what do I do to achieve this? So the specificity and the flow in proposal 2 carries it for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Eka. Any other view? Any other assessment? Tishiki?
I also agree that proposal 2 is better. I think the proposal 1, the purpose and objectives don't talk to each other. And for proposal 3, the objectives may speak a little bit to the purpose, but they're not smart. You don't know how to measure them. They're not specific, measurable. And while proposal 2, the purpose and the objectives do match. And at the same time, the objectives are smart and you will be able to measure them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's take 2 more and I'll sort of Ravelesani.
Thank you, Prof. I just wanted to add on what has been said about proposal 2, but what stand out for me is what we spoke about earlier, the issue of transdisciplinary, because they spoke about the social, economic, and the environmental. So those are the intersections that also bring different disciplines all together, and this is what affecting the society, and it also speaks to societal impact and environmental and the sustainability. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Let's have 1 more. Can we just have 1 more who choose a different one?
Okay, I will just add, not different from what has been said already, but just that proposal 2 has very focused aim and clear objectives, and is much better written than the rest.
Okay, all right. Okay, thanks. Thank you for for your assessment. And some assessments are coming through WhatsApps on the message rather. If you want to send them through a chat to save time, you can do so. I see some have been, some few assessments. Sharono has made a proposal as well. That number 1 is not actually showing they can achieve it. So this proposal, the 3 proposals might, I just use them for this short exercise to conscientize ourselves or to remind ourselves about some of the key things we should do, we should avoid, or that we should emphasize. Sometimes the title is very catchy, and when the title is catchy, for example, somebody who wants to improve the quality of life of the population, who wouldn't want that? Improving the quality of life. That will be a societal impact, from the word go, that you want to improve that. But obviously, when the questions are being asked to direct the whole exercise, the whole study, that population is reduced to the youth. For example, question number D, interview the unemployed youth. And it's not even all the youth, but the unemployed youth. And as the speakers have said here, that does not then reflect on the quality of life of the population. So I think this takes us back to where we started, that there should be a very clear conceptualization of the project and the problems that need to be investigated. And of course, it is from this conceptualization that then you begin to ask the questions that are directed to the kinds of challenges or problems that the research seeks to solve. Now, if we look at proposal number one, one of the main objectives is to promote systems thinking, which, of course, is a good thing. But how would the ordinary people know about systems thinking? You will have to explain that in the first instance, what you're trying to do. When you go to the private sector, to government officials, the people you want to interview, okay, government, private sector, local communities, you have to explain what this systems thinking is. And you want to advance multi-sectoral engagement. So if you put yourself in the place of somebody evaluating this proposal, they've got to know all these things, and they're not always very easy to understand. And of course, the idea that one wants to improve the quality of life, it's we all want to do that, but that's a complex issue to even deal with, that the quality of life is affected by so many other things. And so the research will need to be quite broad to deal with all these things. And even when you have a team, a transdisciplinary team to deal with them, it becomes so broad that the danger of sustaining the research itself is very obvious from that point of view. I'm just highlighting some of the weaknesses from these proposals. Proposal, going back to proposal 3, I'll come to proposal 1, which is your favorite last. Now, if one wants to improve the quality of life of the population, and then you choose the quantitative methods to gather the data, you will end up with statistics about how many people are employed or how many people have not been employed over a number of time. You can have that data, but then you're not necessarily going to have a sense of what the quality of life would mean for this population. Quality of life is not something that fits everybody. Somebody who is with a middle class will have a different view about the quality of life. They want to have access to the beaches. They want to have access to be in places where they will go watch movies or sports or go to the theaters. I mean, it depends also on the social grouping of the population to think of the quality of life. It can be done, but the way it is phrased here. And of course, one can analyze government policies and development strategies, but not all government policies will be geared towards the quality of life. Then maybe some specific examples of analyze, these kinds of documents to understand the quality of life would have been very useful. I'm just giving, some of the pointers. Proposal 2, which you like, has the elements that perhaps, as the speakers have indicated, it's clearly formulated on 3 aspects that needs to be tracked: social, economic, and environmental outcomes. And these have got a long-term implications because some of the outcomes might not be tomorrow. We might be able to see economic implications, 5 years down the line when an elected government that is to run for 5 years would have put something in place, and we can see whether there's an economic desirable economic outcomes or not. So that becomes quite important, or environmental conditions. Yes, I think you got it right. As I was putting this exercise together, I wanted to make project number 2 to be your favorite, and so I'm glad you found it a favorite. So you've chosen that quite well. So okay, now I want us to go to the next to the last round of this conversation by looking at some few other aspects. And that would be, well, before I go, does anyone have a question here before we go? And does anybody has a question or comment before we go? Could you unshare? I don't see my screen anymore. Faten, could you see my screen?
No.
We don't see the screen.
Sure what happened. Okay.
Yeah, two hands.
Hey.
Yes, we can see it now.
We have two hands. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, can now. All right, thanks. Okay, there are two hands there, Ngozi and Emmanuel.
Ladies first.
Ngozi?
Yes, Prof.
Ngozi?
Yes.
Is that in? Yes, okay.
Yeah. I didn't hear what you want me to do.
Oh, no, I was just checking whether it's an old hand or you wanted to say something.
Okay. Oh, it has to be an old hand.
Oh, it's
Sorry.
an old hand. That's fine. That's fine. Emmanuel?
Okay, I wanted to say that I liked the way you put the three projects because there was some trick to the way you presented them. The ones that are not appropriate are more attractive at first sight. they have, yeah, they have more words and catchy ones, catchy phrases. So even as we were, even as I was deciding to select project 2, I must be frank that I was not very sure that it would be that one only. But because I just decided that just based on the principles, that the few principles that I know, then I said it's okay. Because you created the three projects in a way that is, if someone doesn't have the spectacles to see through, then they can get caught by those tricky words and the catchy issues, as you explained after we did. So I was just to thank you for pointing out to this. That's something it can be very attractive at face value, but deep down, it's not that valuable. Thanks.
Okay. No, thanks very much, Emmanuel, for those comments. Shall we go to the next one, which is research design and methodology? I just pulled out these pictures, these images rather, for us to think about the research design. What is it that we're actually doing when we have the research design? We always think of ourselves as scientists, and research design means something more scientific, but design in itself is a more generic approach to many things in life. And I just, gave an example of two ideas about designs. There's a few who are in landscaping, or urban planning. There's always a design. The cities are an expression of a design that somebody decided, I want a city to look like this. So if you, every time we visit cities, we just see the design of a city. Somebody who planned how the city should look like. And some of these designs were made when there were very few people in the city. And even when the population of the city has grown, the design has remained, and sometimes actually doesn't necessarily fit the purpose anymore. But that's a very useful way, especially in modern landscaping. There's always a sense of how to make the place beautiful, how to arrange the flowers, the lawn, the flow of water in the garden, and so forth. So I'm giving examples of sort of a high test of life, and this is exactly what these landscaping ideas do. They try to make us imagine a very beautiful place. Sometimes that place is just a desirable place. It's not necessarily there, but we work towards them. And the same happens with design for clothing, actually. Every year around this time of the year, designers are always looking out for the summer, especially in the Southern Hemisphere. It's summer. What are you going to put on in this summer? And they design something. Imagine how the person would look like. And as we do window shopping, we also imagine ourselves as being like that. So design has got a sense of imagining the future, imagining how things might become real. And so one has to think of the research design in that way as well. It's we imagining the world, we're imagining society, and we want to try and see if we could take society in that direction or in that path, so that it looks exactly the way we have it in our own imaginations. So that's in a way part of design. But methodology can be designed to try and help create a future that is not yet there, by the kinds of data that we will collect. If we want to show that there's been soil erosion in the place, for example, or we want to investigate whether there is soil erosion, there are two answers that we'll come up with. It's either whether soil erosion has increased over this area, or it hasn't. And so one designs a methodology that will produce the kind of results. Some of the research questions that we ask are they appear simplistic because they've got this design element in them, that we want to see the world in a particular way. So research design itself, there are books and books on this. I'm just giving one example here of 3 volumes of encyclopedia on research design. And we need to come back to the basic questions of why do we have to design the research? Why do we need a research design? Why can't we just ask a question and go and answer the question? Different disciplines have got approaches to the research questions. But more generally, the research design is important because it affects our research findings. The way we design the research has got implications for research findings. In some cases, we can design the research to give us the answers that we want. And the questions that are usually asked in that directions appear very simplistic. It's either yes or no. It's either this or that. It can be something in between because we want to have that answer. And the reason why research design becomes important then is to understand that the way we design the research will affect our research findings. And I'd like to pause here and say, and get your input into, an example where the research design has preempted the finding. Or to put it another way, a research design that we can almost tell beforehand that, this is where the direction of the research will go, even before the research is conducted. There's another element to this, and I want to put this together so you can choose which one to try and contribute to. That research design is critical for eliminating bias. But I could pause here and say, what's wrong with the bias in research? Maybe let's start with the last one. What is wrong with the bias in research? Why would we want to eliminate it? Any thoughts? Yes, Emmanuel?
Yeah, biases. I remember when we were being taught that like if you are using subjective sampling wrongly, let's say I have an eggs business, so I would want to produce data that shows only better eggs to the customers, while actually I have a mix of like better by size, big and small eggs. But if I'm biased, I produce data on eggs to advertise my eggs to the customers. Being biased will make me select only the bigger eggs, but when I sell them, I'll mix with the small ones. So I'll be a thief literally because I lied to a thief and a liar because I lied to my customers. I just used that simplest example. Thanks.
Okay, no, thanks, Emmanuel. It's a very effective example we've used. We have another insight.
Yeah, Prof, if we have to eliminate bias because if the research should remain objective, there shouldn't be any bias. Otherwise, if another person tries to replicate it, it will not give the same results.
Okay.
Unless, of course, you tell the person the bias that you allowed, so that the person also allows the bias.
Okay. I haven't seen many research findings where people have declared the bias beforehand. they just present it as the truth, and this was done in a scientific way. But you're right. If there is a bias, it must be, or if there are limitations, they must be declared. That this is the project, this is the research that I've done. These are the limitations, and because of these limitations, the results should be treated with caution. Okay. No, thanks, Ngozi, for that. Said?
Yes, when there is an element of bias, it means you basically want to advance some predetermined results. Maybe like you want to market something using some deceptive methods, which I think is not right.
Okay, thanks. And if there are people here who who work in business, I think business is always tempted to go that route. You want to influence behavior. And that's why they spend so much money in advertisement, to say, this, if you use this product, this is how you would look, for example. If you eat this food, you will never get old. If you so there's always an element of that, but this is also where science come in. I think there are products where they say, this is scientifically proven. Can't remember which product. I've seen some of these things. This is what the doctors will approve, for example. And so there's always something that becomes more. I mean, when they market it, they use science, because science, if the scientists. Sorry, I dropped for a minute. I'm not sure what happened. But I was just making the point about the 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 products that sometimes are I gotta say if anyone could you just say your comment? I think it's very important to hear you saying this.
Hello, everyone. I'm just saying that, yeah, I know you mentioned businesses more specifically, but I think sometimes researchers want to impose their opinions on others by, sometimes unconscious bias leading to making deductions even from scientific output in a way that promotes their opinion. So it's something that one needs to be kind of conscious of in order to address the unconscious bias.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, there is an unconscious bias. But there is a very important argument that is being made now and then that, we all have our own biases of something. Okay. And when we make a choice of the topic we want to research, it's already a bias in itself. But the point here is that we have to try and find the truth in whatever way, and be careful of the kind of bias that might influence the way we and sometimes it's unconscious. People don't necessarily intend to be biased, but they've just been trained to think along those ways. They want to have a sense of what they can or can't do. Okay. So let me come to then another point on the research methodology. We've touched on this already, but I want to sort of go a bit deeper into it now that we sort of go into as the final minutes of this presentation to remind ourselves of the conceptual frameworks that we use, and the importance of concepts. I think the conceptual framework is something that we touched on. I remember earlier on when we had a discussions in the first few 30 minutes about the kinds of quality, the research quality, what makes it more quality is the question that we asked, but also, we also emphasize the clarity of the objectives, the clarity of the argument that we make. But when we discuss the writings of Chinua Achebe, Wangari Maathai, and Mathai, and others, and Steve Biko, sorry, we were trying to look at the concept. How did they conceptualize the world, and what came out of that conceptualization? Because that's where the research methodology starts. It's how we have conceptual frameworks, and choosing the concepts that will be quite helpful for us to understand. We have had some examples of indigenous knowledge systems. We're talking about transdisciplinarity, but most of us will recall that indigenous knowledge systems were not always in the conceptual framework of research for some time. It was there at the background, but now it has been profiled, and we seem to be more interested in indigenous knowledge systems, whether it's in health, in agriculture, agroeconomy, for example. We try to understand indigenous knowledge systems because of the transdisciplinary mode of research that we're getting into, in perhaps more intentional ways than before. So the conceptual framework is important because of the concepts that we use. And I want to pause here and say, are there concepts that if we use them, the research is most likely to, to be weaker. In other disciplines, they've got concepts that are like the core of this discipline. If you do sociology, for example, you need to understand this. You need to understand this core. If you're doing physics, you need to understand these concepts. And the reason for these concepts are many. I just want to get a sense from you. Why do you think concepts are key to many of these disciplines? Why are disciplines built on certain concepts? Any thoughts? Now I can see the hands. What did I do? Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Prof.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, we
okay.
can hear you, Prof.
All right, okay. So I'm asking the question, why are concepts key to disciplines? Or why are disciplines built on concepts? I mean, when you do certain studies, there will always be a sense of, this is a key concept for this discipline. Why is it so? Why do disciplines need key concepts? Yes, Said?
Yes, I can give an example where, for example, talk about sustainability and the way of handling things. Two concepts easily come into mind. One is integrated and one is sectoral. And you can see when you work with a sectoral thinking, you lack the element of integration. And therefore, the chances of you losing some very, very important aspects in your work become very, very open. Otherwise, if you had a thinking of integration from the beginning, then you see you are borrowing in so many things from many sectors because I've already known that your ultimate result will be affected if there's no integration. Maybe I don't know whether that one makes sense.
Yes, it does. It does, Said. It does make sense. That there are concepts that would alert us to the need to integrate things. Otherwise you're not going to be able to do justice to the work. Emmanuel?
Yes, one thing you already mentioned, it's a sense of belonging. You talked about physics having some concepts, maybe sociology, expecting you to dwell on certain concepts. Unless you do that, you will not be doing physics because you are not you are not dealing with the concepts in physics. And I think this is also in line with what Said said. But it's also a question of timing. It's also related to this belonging there, but it's a question of timing. Maybe you want to do research now, but you are using concepts that maybe were relevant in the 80s or 60s or something like that. So it's a question of belonging in terms of time and the topic.
Okay.
An issue of relevance.
Thanks very much. As say, Dorothy has just indicated, for people to be validated, you need to have used these concepts so people can validate you. If you're doing economics, there are certain basics, fundamentals of economics. I mean, you remember those where there were books, fundamentals of this, fundamentals of this. I mean, we still have those kind of titles, essentials of this and that. Florence?
Yes, Professor, I think you've just said it. I wanted just to say that they provide the foundation, the principles that then your study would base on. But to some extent, you have to then define it. When you're defining the concepts used, you are not coming with your definition from the blue. It's building on already what is known. That is just the little I wanted to add. Thank you.
Okay. No, thanks very much for that, Florence. And I mean, there are also weaknesses with concepts. I mean, concepts are good to, to serve as the foundations, but there are also weaknesses in concepts. What is weak about concepts in any discipline? What are the limitations of concepts? Yes, Ngozi?
What I see in that is you transfer errors, previous errors, to the present, and it continues if we continue to use those concepts as they are.
Yes, yes. So you're right. You could perpetuate the errors of concepts, and that's why people are always testing these concepts. But what we often forget about concepts is that they were also founded under certain circumstances. And so they need to be interrogated all the time because the frameworks on which they were built reflect the world of their time and may not necessarily be right to look at it now. But there are some principles that, of course, will remain valid. They are sort of they are the universals. They are quite important. Whether it is in linguistics, it becomes important. These are the building blocks. But what the point I'm trying to make here is that one has to be very careful about concepts, that we shouldn't take them for granted. We shouldn't take them as given. They are also products of the thinking of the time, and things might have changed over time. They also reflect some of the value systems of those who were carrying out research at the time. The way they've described the world may not necessarily hold true today. Not in all circumstances. I'm not suggesting by any means that we should throw away all the concepts that are in disciplines. But more importantly for transdisciplinary research is that some of the concept becomes a barrier to new knowledge because we are holding on these concepts which are disciplinary by nature, which validates the knowledge of a particular discipline. And by doing so, we could lose out on moving beyond those disciplines and understanding the world from a fresh perspective. So from a transdisciplinary perspective, the concepts might serve as a barrier to the creation of new knowledge where we need to step out of the disciplinary boundaries themselves and try to understand the world as it confronts us or as we say it. Okay. Anybody who wants to add one point on the concepts before we go to the next aspect? Anybody who wants to add anything? No? So if we go to the techniques of data collection, I don't think there is much for us to discuss here. I guess that most of you are, researchers, and you have been using techniques of data collection. There are techniques, of course, that were used in the past, and technology has meant that we should rethink some of these techniques for data collection. So if we think of surveys, for example, what are the sort of historical techniques of doing surveys? Any thoughts? Historical techniques of doing surveys. Sikulisimia. Hope I didn't.
Thank you, Prof.
Yes.
Thank you, Prof. I just want to comment about barriers, but you talked about, you already talked about.
Yes.
But
Yes,
what I
go
want
on.
to add also is that key concept may also limit the methodology because it depends of one of field. We don't have the same means of concept in disciplinary. Depend.
Yes. No, thanks. Yeah, that's true. Thanks very much for that. Emmanuel?
Excuse me, I was muted. I wanted to attempt to answer your question about all the
Techniques.
approaches.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I don't know, maybe I may be wrong because originally I'm not a social scientist, but it was moving from house to house asking questions,
Okay.
which I think is not necessary nowadays, although it may still be used.
Yes, okay. So you sort of go from house to house to talk to people. I mean, even in sort of the old census, wanting to know the population size of the country, people will move from house to house. But things have changed now with some of the technologies that you could aggregate numbers. Okay, that's very useful. You remind me of this sort of the surveys, questionnaires that people use to print and circulate. Again, going from place to place to say these are questionnaires, sending them to get answers. But of course, those are foundational in terms of doing qualitative studies, but the world has changed. People are not always at home, and you could have what we have now is a Zoom, so you can have a Zoom interview, and also save time and money, because then it becomes more easier to talk to the person. But I think it's important to also cast our eyes into the natural sciences and how they used to measure soil quality, for example. In chemistry, the laboratories are not always as they were in the past. So things have changed to try and make things a bit simpler. And what we need to understand or refresh our minds is more on the new techniques. And of course, with artificial intelligence now, there are even more advanced techniques. You could, instead of reading literature and summarizing, it does that for you. But you have to check whether the stuff that you're getting is actually the correct stuff. So it's important to think of all these changes, but what the changes actually do to the research. Is the research being enhanced by some of these changes or weakened? That's sort of $1 million question when we come to rigorous research, because you could easily have interviews, record them, you could have WhatsApps and so forth. But this also takes us to another direction, which we have to always remind ourselves of how we store the data. Given all these other innovations about research, how do we store the data? We use WhatsApps, and sometimes people say very important things over WhatsApps. How do we curate the WhatsApps to become part of the data that we can use as evidence? If indeed we've been interviewing people through WhatsApps, if it is video, are we always recording? Where do we store them? So there are challenges about what we would do with the data that we have collected through various technologies that we have. My sense is that in as much as we're using technologies to simplify data collection, we still need to strengthen our data storage capacities, our data storage approaches, and the ethics that go with that. You know, given open science and wanting research to be accessible. So this is complicating research, but we as researchers need to grapple with that as we do the project. But then comes data analysis, where you could we could analyze data using statistical techniques quite easily, using graphics. There are so many there's so many advantages of using or harnessing the technologies that we have today. But we have to remind ourselves all the time about how these technologies need to fit within the acceptable ethics or behaviors that scientists should observe. So that's, for me, it's quite important as we think about this. So in the research proposal, all these things have to be clear. I'm going to be using quantitative and qualitative data, and data storage, data analysis have to be very clear, because if we don't have a proper data analysis, we might have very good data, but the results will not be very strong because the data analysis has not been thought through carefully. Okay, I'll pause here and see if there is any question. Anybody who wants to ask a question or maybe make a comment? Okay, we can proceed and go to, continue with the research design. They seem to be.
Question, please.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
I have a
Professor.
question, because as you are, I perfectly agree with your points on the concept, but I want to also draw attention to the risks that are involved in application of some of our modern technologies and modern applications, like the issue of adulteration, authenticity, verification, and ratification of data. Because you made mention of the fact that at times we can record, we can maybe have a video, we can use the WhatsApp, and in trying to acquire our data, in trying to acquire information from respondents. But you agree with me that now it is also very easy for people to adulterate some of these apps and hack into them. So we should also not lose sight of the fact of the risks that are also involved in these applications as well. Thank you.
No, thanks very much. I think that's a very important point. The risks that are involved, and we have to talk about these risks. I read one instance where some crucial information was obtained through a WhatsApp. So the WhatsApp is good because it's sort of, something on the go. You could say, how do you, where's the next conference on this? What is the topic? And you get it there and there. But if you're using the WhatsApp to gather data, chances are that you could easily have it as one of the piles of the WhatsApps. And when issues arise about what you said was on the WhatsApp might not be there. It might have been deleted. And then you can't prove anything. And actually, this is something that happened in a research that I'm aware of, where something was shared through a WhatsApp, a very crucial information. And when the research was published, the researchers could not trace that WhatsApp. They just say, well, it was here, it was there. The same with websites. And that's why when we reference websites, we always say, this is what I saw on this day, because it will disappear. Websites keep changing. Now, the challenge for the researcher is to be up to date with methods of curating this information wherever they find it. And if we are not trained into, or we're not alert to the temporary nature of some of this data. It is very possible that we might lose out. I recall another incident where there was a nice map that that was used to sort of profile a particular entity, and the map had so much information. But when the one of the professors was presenting the paper, they wanted to use that map, use the link, and the link was broken. You know, the map was no longer there. And the only thing the professor could say was simply, oh, the map was here. And this is what the map had to offer. And so we have to be very careful about the modern technologies or technological advances and how they require us to actually work with new methods of data curation, new methods of data storage, and how we analyze the data. So I agree with you that there are risks here. On one hand, you save time, you save resources like money, but on the other hand, there are these risks that can actually nullify everything that you have tried to do, because the data, if it's managed properly, is always shifting, and especially where you've got crucial data. Whether it is about statistical analysis that you want to do, and you say, well, there were so many people here and so forth, only to find that the source of that data is no longer available. And how do you prove that, you know, this is the issue? I see, Said, you have got a hand up.
I've got my hand up because we're talking about risks. And
Yes.
here it brings us the importance of creating redundancies to make sure that that data is not found in only one location as a counter to the fear that data could be lost. So just want to emphasize the importance of creating redundancies.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, Said. And just to add one more point on what we're discussing about the data. Now we also have the issue of the, you know, of the ethics that gets complicated because the source of data is coming from different sources. So if you've, you know, if you have got your standard interview mechanisms, you will have you to explain the ethics, and people sign the ethics forms and so forth to make sure that you're not necessarily you know, forcing the respondent to give you the kind of information that you want. They've got the freedom to say, no, I'm not going to answer this question. But if you think of other ways, you know, you're communicating by emails, you're asking the question and people respond. You know, what is the methodology of trying to get ethics, you know, when you use those kind of tools? But it becomes more complicated, especially in the social settings. And I would say that even in the natural science settings, things are, you know, they're changing all the time. So I'm just encouraging you to, you know, to keep technology, to try. There are challenges and risks, and how do we mitigate them? Now, as a last point on this, we need to build then into the research proposals how we will mitigate some of these things that we're now referring to. Okay, I'm not going to waste your time on quantitative and qualitative research. I think this is quite standard in most people who have done the research. But just to emphasize the point that there is now an understanding that neither of these are strong on their own, because if we go transdisciplinary, we basically need both of these. there's a way of measuring things where quantitative plays a role, and another direction where we actually need to explain things, where the qualitative approach becomes important. I thank you for indulging me and listening to me throughout this afternoon or in the morning, wherever you are, but it has been a bit of time. I want to pause here and see if anybody has got any last questions to ask, any comments, so that we can draw this to a close. Any last question to ask? We have 7 minutes basically to end the sessions. Chibole? You're muted, Chibole? Sorry, Chibole, you're muted. I can see the hand, but Chibole, if you can hear me, you're muted. Okay. Can we move to another person who want to say something?
Said.
Yes, Said.
Can you now hear me?
Yes, we can. Okay, let's go back to Jibola. Yes, we can hear.
I'll just comment on the concepts. I want to say that besides concepts being actually the building blocks of knowledge, and the strength of the theories that guide, any discipline also depend on the quality of the concept analysis.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Yeah, that's quite important. Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
So the concepts are key to theory building. Yeah, thanks. Kwarani?
Yes, please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, please, I have just a question related to if we will have like any support documents that will help us while trying to write the full proposal. Just like the document that have all like the necessarily or the most important points that we need to keep in mind while trying to have a successful proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Faten is taking notes of that. We will, yeah. I mean, we this is the beginning of the support we're giving you already. Thanks. Faten, do you want to maybe respond to that question?
Yeah, definitely, sure. So we are collecting all materials coming from the different trainers, and we will share them with you together with the launch of last Thursday session. So this could you could receive those no later than 1 or days from now. So yeah.
Okay, all right. Thanks. So yeah, Koran is happy with that. Any last question? Okay, all right. Said, is this a new hand or is it old one?
It's a new hand.
Okay, yes, Said.
Yeah, what I wanted to emphasize is that because we are dealing with multidisciplinary researchers, we've got to be cognizant that scientists and the social scientists ask questions differently. The scientists have a tendency of asking very direct questions, and that could probably not augur well for some questions that are social in nature. And therefore, we really to think on how we're going to frame our questions, because the question might originate from somebody who's got is a physical scientist, biological scientist, but the question is basically social in nature. And as such, the way that question is being asked is very, very important. It needs to be really guided, because I've seen sometimes some questions are being asked and then the respondents don't want to give an answer. Thank you very much.
Okay, no, thanks very much. That's quite important. Ezora?
So thank you so much for this nice presentation and for the replay of all the questions. I have just one question about the day link for submitted the full proposal. If there is any day link, if it's and then February or in December.
Okay, thanks. Faten, could you answer that question directly?
Yeah, thank you for the question regarding the deadline. Lebo, are you still here? Or I can respond on your behalf. If Lebo is still here, so Lebo can take us through that.
Yes, no, I'm still here. So the closing date for the full proposal, it's going to be the 5th of February 2025.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, now that's so you still have a bit of
Sorry,
time,
sorry.
but yes,
Sorry,
yes.
I have other question if it's possible, please.
Yes,
Because
yes.
there is some of my colleagues submitted some projects and they didn't receive the mail of acceptation. And when they ask by mail if they are accepted or no, they reply them that they are accepted. But until now, they still didn't receive any mail of acceptation.
Okay, thanks. Libu and Faten will attend to that. They're taking note of it. Just to make sure that you correspond. You could also write to the two and say, give us an update on this project so that they don't have to go through the whole. Okay, Henry.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. One of the things I was looking to see, and I hope it may come in subsequent presentations, we talk about the interaction behind social scientists, natural scientists, but in the transdisciplinary science or research engagement, the stakeholders are supposed to be equal knowledge co-developers. But most of the discussions is going around with developing typical multidisciplinary collaborative research. So I want us to see if there's going to be a session or a discussion in actually working with the stakeholders, not on a top-down form, but actually having them as equal partners in that collective research question, the collective problem or program identification. And I think that would be really helpful for most of the consortiums that are out here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Yeah, I agree with you that in the methodologies. So, I mean, the whole section of methodology could need a day on its own to grapple with all these things. But what I was hoping to do is just to refresh your minds and to have a sense of, give you the opportunity to share your own perspectives as well. So yeah, that's important. The organizers will think about how to move that forward, because in transdisciplinary research, co-designing the research is important, and how do we actually do that in practice? Because the evaluation of the project will also be based on how the code design has been proposed. Yeah. Okay, we have come to the end of our session. So thank you very much for giving me the audience and for interacting. I've also learned a lot from you as you were sharing your thoughts with me. So thank you very much. You have already been shortlisted, and you are doing the final run. Just remember the picture of the athletes. That they've got to keep focus as they have to now go through the finishing line, and I wish you the best, and I hope that
Very much.
some of your own research. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Can make
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice time.
Bye.
Greatly
Bye.
appreciated.
Bye.
Thank you all. Good evening.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you and bye.